You place your hope in people, and wonder why your heart keeps breaking. But the moment you tie your hope to the one who never changes, everything inside you begins to heal. My friend, every heart walks through this world carrying threads of hope. Some hopes are tied to people, some to moments, some to dreams, and some to wounds that we pray will one day make sense. But Ibn Arabi reminds us that there is only one thread that never snaps, only one anchor that never drifts, only one light that never fades, the hope tied to God. For all other hopes, no matter how beautiful they look, no matter how sincere they feel, are shadows. They disappear with time, they tremble with circumstance, they collapse with human weakness, because everything that is created carries the nature of impermanence. People change, days turn, seasons shift, hearts forget, promises dissolve, and when your hope is tied to anything that is temporary, your peace becomes temporary as well. But when you tie your hope to the eternal, your soul becomes eternal in its strength. Ibn Arabi says, "Nothing can break the heart that has learned where to place its trust, because the heart that hopes in God does not beg the world for compassion, it receives compassion from the source of compassion. It does not chase comfort from people, it is comforted by the one who created comfort. It does not fear the loss of anything, for its greatest treasure was never something the world could give or take. Hope in God is not a wish. It is a recognition that the one who shaped your destiny before you existed cannot fail you after you arrive. A recognition that the one who holds galaxies in his command can easily carry the weight of your sadness. A recognition that the one who knows the movement of every leaf knows the tremble of your heart. And when this recognition settles inside you, something extraordinary happens. Your heart stops collapsing over things that were never meant to carry it. Your hope becomes clear. Your soul becomes steady. Your tears become softer. Your fears become smaller. Your path becomes lighter, because you no longer walk with the uncertainty of depending on the world. You walk with the certainty of depending on the one who created the world. Ibn Arabi teaches that hope in God is not only unbreakable, it is transformational. When you hope in Him, your life begins to change from the inside first. Your sadness becomes prayer. Your waiting becomes purification. Your weakness becomes surrender. And your surrender becomes strength. The world may disappoint you 100 times, but each disappointment is a sign pointing you back to the only one who never disappoints. Every broken expectation is a calling. Every closed door is a direction. Every hurt is a reminder. Place your hope where it belongs, and when you finally do, when you finally lift your hands and place all expectations in God, your heart experiences a calmness you cannot explain, a stillness that does not shake, a clarity that does not fade, a peace that does not depend on circumstances, or people, or outcomes, because the only hope that never fails is the hope that returns to the source of all things. So, my friend, if your heart is tired, let it rest in the one who never leaves. If your hope is broken, rebuild it in the one who never breaks. If your soul is trembling, anchor it in the one who never moves. Tie your hope to God, and everything you are chasing will begin to chase you. Every hope a human being carries within the fragile walls of the heart is shaped by limitation, by change, by uncertainty, and because of this, every expectation we tie to people or circumstances trembles with the smallest shift in life. And Ibn Arabi reminds us that the nature of creation is instability, for what is created is destined to evolve, to alter, to rise and fall, to appear and vanish. And when a heart expects permanence from what is inherently impermanent, it begins to crack under the weight of its own longing, because human beings forget, they get tired, they change direction, they get wounded, they get distracted, they carry their own storms. And hoping in them is like placing your treasure on a boat made of dust. But when the same heart turns toward the eternal and ties its hope to the one who never changes, the fragile becomes strong, the uncertain becomes clear, the trembling becomes still, because divine hope is not affected by the winds of life. It is rooted in a foundation that lies beyond time, beyond condition, beyond weakness, and the human heart, no matter how much it pretends to be strong, is always seeking something that will not fail it, something that will not leave it, something that will not collapse under its weight, because the heart carries an ancient memory, a knowing placed within it by the Creator Himself, that true reliance belongs only to Him. And this is why hopes tied to people often feel heavy, because the soul knows it is depending on something that cannot carry the load. But hopes tied to God feel light, even in hardship, because the soul recognizes that it has returned to its rightful anchor. And Ibn Arabi says that the heart becomes a mirror of what it trusts. So, when you trust the temporary, you become restless. But when you trust the eternal, you become peaceful. Consider how often people place their hope in relationships, in outcomes, in success, in approval, in promises that were never guaranteed, and how quickly these hopes turn into sorrow when life shifts even slightly. Because anything that depends on the world will be shaped by the world, anything that relies on people will be limited by people, and anything that leans on the fragile will eventually break. Yet the heart continues this cycle until it learns that the breakage is not a punishment but a direction, a divine redirection pulling you away from weakness toward strength, away from the temporary toward the infinite, and every disappointment becomes a lesson whispering that there is only one place where hope remains unbroken. When the heart ties its hope to God, something profound begins to happen within it, not suddenly, but quietly, gently, in a way that reshapes the inner world. Because divine hope is not like the hope you place in life. It does not rise and fall with the tides of your circumstances. It does not weaken when your plans fail. It does not vanish when people walk away. It becomes a light inside you that grows even in the darkness. It becomes a calmness that refuses to leave. It becomes a certainty that whispers to your soul even when everything seems uncertain. And gradually the heart learns that the strength it was searching for was never outside, it was always waiting to awaken through trust in its Creator. Human hope says, I believe things will go the way I want. But divine hope says, I trust that whatever God chooses will carry goodness I cannot yet see. And this is what makes it unbreakable, because divine hope does not depend on outcomes. It depends on the one who controls outcomes. And when your hope is placed in Him, your heart stops collapsing over situations. It stops fearing loss. It stops measuring its peace by external events, because its anchor lies beyond the reach of the world. Ibn Arabi teaches that when you lean on God, you lean on a strength that no storm can shake. And the more you experience this, the more the heart stops expecting perfection from imperfect people, stops expecting guarantees from unpredictable days, stops expecting happiness from temporary things, and begins to rest, truly rest, in the one who never fails. And this resting is the beginning of inner freedom, because nothing weighs more heavily on the human soul than misplaced hope, and nothing frees it more completely than placing hope exactly where it belongs, in the hands of the one who never disappoints. Ibn Arabi speaks of the hope that never fails. He is not speaking of an ordinary optimism or a motivational slogan that one repeats to feel better for a moment. He is pointing toward a reality operating beneath all realities, a current running under every rise and fall of life, a current the heart can sense even when the mind denies it, a current that becomes visible only when the illusions of control begin to crumble. This hope is not built on outcomes, because outcomes change. It is not built on people, because people shift like shadows. It is not built on circumstances, because circumstances rotate like the sky around a wandering traveler. Rather, this hope arises from the one who does not change, the one whose presence remains constant even when every form created by Him dissolves. And in recognizing that permanence behind impermanence, a person discovers the only hope that cannot be broken. Ibn Arabi calls this the hope that lives in the unseen part of you, the portion of your soul that remembers God even when your mind forgets Him, the part of you that stands connected to the infinite source of mercy, the part that knows you are never abandoned even in your darkest confusion. And it is this inner remembrance that becomes a silent anchor when the world around you turns unpredictable. When you lose something valuable, the naive hope tied to that thing collapses instantly. But the inner hope tied to God expands, because it understands that what is taken from you was never truly yours, and what is returned to you carries the wisdom of divine arrangement. And slowly you begin to realize that life is not happening to you, but unfolding through you according to a truth larger than your limited understanding. Ibn Arabi teaches that the greatest illusion is believing that control belongs to you, because the desire to control breeds the fear of losing, and fear is the birthplace of hopelessness. But when you stop trying to control and start witnessing, you uncover the subtle order behind the chaos, and this witnessing reveals that nothing in your life has ever been random, not your sorrows, not your delays, not your unanswered prayers, not your unexpected turns, and in this realization, hope shifts from a desperate expectation to a serene trust. The heart becomes spacious when it lets go of the belief that it must foresee the future, because the heart is not designed to plan everything. It is designed to reflect the divine light even when the path ahead is completely dark. Ibn Arabi explains that the darkness you face is not the absence of God, but the absence of your own clarity. And this darkness is sometimes the most sacred place, because in darkness your senses cannot guide you, your strategies cannot save you, your intelligence cannot predict anything, and in such helplessness, you finally turn toward the inner light that had been waiting for your attention. This inner light is where true hope lives, quiet but unshakable, like a flame that does not depend on the wind, and as this flame grows, you begin to sense divine companionship in moments you once thought you were alone. Many people think hope means believing things will get better, but Ibn Arabi says real hope means knowing that even if things do not get better in the way you imagine, you will still be carried, still be protected, still be guided to a wisdom greater than what you lost. So the quality of your hope changes from outcome-based to presence-based. You start to live with the awareness that every disappointment is a doorway, every delay is a recalibration, every heartbreak is a refinement, every confusion is a cleansing, and every test is a sign that the one who created your heart is shaping it for something more expansive than your earlier vision. This kind of hope does not shake when life shakes, because it is not rooted in life. It is rooted in the one who authored life. And when this understanding settles into your being, you stop panicking over uncertainty, you stop fearing the unknown, you stop doubting your journey, and you begin to meet every moment with a calmness that comes from knowing that the one who brought you here never brought you to abandon you. And this recognition becomes the silent miracle that sustains you through every storm. Ibn Arabi says that the hope that never fails is born when a person finally recognizes that every form in this world is a temporary mirror, reflecting a sliver of a reality that cannot be contained in form. And when you attach your hope to these shifting mirrors, you inevitably suffer because reflections change, fade, distort, and disappear. But when your hope turns toward the light behind all reflections, you discover a stability untouched by the movement of destiny. This world is a theater of appearances. Everything you fear losing is already in the process of returning to its source, and everything you are waiting for is already written in a place your eyes cannot see. The human heart becomes restless when it relies on what is visible, because the visible world is constantly dissolving, constantly rearranging itself under divine command. And Ibn Arabi teaches that true rest comes only when your hope anchors in the unseen, where divine mercy is not measured by events, but by presence. Life has a way of taking from you the very things you lean onto heavily, not as a punishment, but as a redirection, to show you that strength does not come from what you hold, but from what holds you. People arrive in your life as vessels through which divine qualities flow: love, support, kindness, companionship, but they are not the source of those qualities, only carriers. And confusing the vessel with the source creates the illusion that your hope depends on them. When the vessel changes or disappears, you collapse because you assume the source disappeared too. Yet the source never moves, never diminishes, never closes its doors, and this realization marks the beginning of divine hope. Ibn Arabi says you must learn to see the world not as a provider, but as a veil, not as a destination, but as a signpost pointing to the one who actually sustains you. In this transformation of perception, you stop chasing people for validation because you begin to feel validated by the one who fashioned your soul with purpose. You stop fearing loss because you understand that nothing essential to your becoming can ever be taken. You stop begging destiny to change because you realize destiny itself is shaped by the wisdom that created you. This kind of awareness is not reached by the intellect alone. It is cultivated by experience, by heartbreaks that shake you awake, by delays that force you inward, by disappointments that dismantle false expectations, and by moments of helplessness that push you toward the only door that never closes. Ibn Arabi explains that divine hope grows not when life is easy, but when your illusions fall apart, because illusions act like fog over your inner horizon, blocking the light that is already within you. When the fog clears through trials, you suddenly see how guided you were even in moments of confusion, how protected you were even in moments of fear, how heard you were even in moments when your prayers seemed unanswered. And this recognition becomes the seed of a hope that does not depend on external proof. You begin to sense that every interruption in your plans was aligning you with something you could not foresee. Every delay was preserving you from what you were not ready for. Every separation was clearing space for a deeper arrival, and every silence from life was drawing you into a more intimate conversation with the divine. Ibn Arabi describes this state as tasting the sweetness of trust, where the heart no longer trembles before uncertainty, because it has discovered a certainty that is not tied to outcomes, but to the nearness of God. You start to understand that the reason some doors remain closed is not because you are unworthy, but because those doors lead away from your true unfolding. And the reason some prayers are answered slowly is because the transformation required to receive them is still in progress. Divine timing is not human timing, and what seems like delay from your perspective may actually be perfect arrangement from the perspective of the one who sees beyond all horizons. As your insight deepens, you begin to rely on a different kind of knowing, not the knowing of the mind that demands clarity, but the knowing of the heart that senses companionship even in darkness. This knowing is the birthplace of unshakable hope, the kind of hope that breathes inside you even when you feel broken, that whispers to you when you feel lost, that strengthens you when you feel empty, that holds you together when the world feels unstable. And slowly you begin to live from this inner center where nothing can truly threaten you, because you have learned to anchor your being in the one who never changes, never withdraws, never forgets, and never stops guiding the hearts that turn toward him even in silence. Ibn Arabi says that the journey of true peace begins the moment a person realizes that the weight they carry does not come from life itself, but from the expectations they attach to life, because expectations tie the heart to specific outcomes, and when outcomes shift, the heart breaks. The soul was not created to cling to what is temporary. It was created to witness the eternal behind the temporary. Yet humans spend years holding tightly to people, timelines, plans, and desires, believing that peace will come only when life unfolds exactly as they imagine. But the more they tighten their grip, the more life slips through their fingers, teaching them gently, sometimes painfully, that surrender is not defeat, but liberation. Ibn Arabi explains that surrender is not about giving up effort, but giving up the illusion of control, because control belongs only to the one who writes destines with a wisdom beyond the reach of human understanding. When you surrender your expectations to God, you do not lose anything. Rather, you regain the freedom your heart has been longing for, the freedom to breathe without fear, to move without anxiety, to hope without breaking. In surrender, you begin to experience life differently. Instead of resisting what comes, you observe it. Instead of clinging to what leaves, you release it. Instead of demanding that life match your script, you learn to trust the script written for you. And slowly the inner turbulence settles, because the heart no longer fights the flow of divine decree. Ibn Arabi teaches that the soul finds peace not by changing circumstances, but by aligning itself with the wisdom behind circumstances. This alignment is subtle but transformative. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this guiding me toward?" Suddenly every event, whether joyful or painful, becomes a messenger, a teacher, a sign leading you deeper into yourself and closer to your Creator. People often misunderstand surrender, thinking it means weakness or passivity. But in the eyes of the mystics, surrender is the highest form of spiritual strength. It is the strength of someone who knows that relying on the infinite is far more secure than relying on the limited. It is the strength of someone who chooses trust over fear, acceptance over resistance, certainty over doubt. When you release your expectations, you do not diminish your dreams. You elevate them by placing them in hands that never fail. You stop relying on your limited perspective and begin relying on the divine perspective that sees your past, your present, your future, and the unseen threads connecting them all. In this state, disappointment loses its sting because you begin to see that every closed door is a divine redirection, every delay is divine protection, and every loss is divine purification. Surrender unveils the hidden architecture of your life, how moments that once seemed random were actually woven with purpose.